Was Gaddafi a visionary leader who fell victim to circumstance, or a power-hungry tyrant who deserved his downfall? This question forces us to grapple with the contradictions of Muammar Gaddafi's rule. In this video, we will explore Gaddafi's policies, from free education and healthcare to accusations of human rights abuses. By examining the impact of his leadership, we can understand if Gaddafi truly improved the lives of Libyans, or if he was the mad dog of the Middle East, a phrase coined by President Reagan during his presidency in the 1980s. Greetings and welcome. I'm Carolyn A. from GettingToTheRoots.com. Here, we're all about uncovering and celebrating your unique family history. Together, we'll explore and honor the stories that define us. Let's dive in. Did Gaddafi's upbringing as a Bedouin nomad shape his leadership style and his determination to change Libya? Gaddafi didn't come from a wealthy background. He was born into a Bedouin family who were desert nomads, living a tough life that likely taught him to be independent and self-reliant early on. Gaddafi encountered revolutionary ideas in school, such as Arab unity and opposition to colonial rule, which were gaining traction throughout the Middle East. These ideas deeply influenced him and sparked his passion for activism. As a young man, he started to organize. He formed a secret group with other military officers who were unhappy with Libya's leader, King Idris. Many people in Libya thought King Idris was too close to Western countries and ignored his own people's needs. In 1969, when the king went abroad for medical treatment, Gaddafi and his group saw their chance. They carried out a quick, peaceful coup that overthrew the monarchy and started a new chapter in Libya under Gaddafi's leadership. How did Gaddafi's education and infrastructure policies affect Libyans' daily lives? Under Gaddafi's rule, Libya saw remarkable improvements in education and infrastructure, including significant strides in technology. Before Gaddafi took power in 1969, Libya had one of the lowest literacy rates in the world, with only about 10% of the population able to read and write. By the end of his rule, the literacy rate had increased dramatically to over 80%. This was largely due to his policy of free education, which extended from elementary school all the way to higher education. Many Libyans now have greater access to higher education, thanks to the construction and expansion of universities and technical schools. In terms of infrastructure, Gaddafi's government invested heavily in the country's physical and technological development. This included the construction of thousands of kilometers of roads and extensive housing projects that provided homes for countless Libyans. The Great Man-Made River Project, considered a marvel of modern engineering, was one of his most ambitious projects. Its design was to transport water from aquifers in the Sahara Desert to populous coastal regions. Technology also saw significant advances. The government promoted the use of telecommunications and began to develop internet access towards the latter part of his rule. Although technological growth was not as rapid as in some other countries, these improvements helped modernize Libya. Gaddafi's vision for Africa was one of unity and strength. He envisioned a continent united politically and economically, capable of standing as a global power. To this end, he was a prominent advocate and financial supporter of the African Union, contributing significant amounts of Libya's oil revenues to fund the organization and its initiatives. He proposed the creation of a single African military force, a single currency, and a passport for all Africans to move freely across the continent. Gaddafi's financial support was extensive and covered various development projects across Africa, contributing significantly to economic growth and regional unity. These projects included substantial investments in education, infrastructure, and healthcare in several African countries. For instance, Libya provided financial aid for building schools in Niger and Mali, helping to improve education systems in these regions. Gaddafi also funded the construction of hospitals in Chad and Burkina Faso, which played a crucial role in enhancing healthcare services and facilities in these countries. Infrastructure development was another major area where Gaddafi's financial support made an impact. He financed the construction of major roads and bridges in countries like Liberia and Sierra Leone, which helped improve transportation and boost trade within these countries and their neighbors. Estimates suggest that Libya contributed billions of dollars in total to various African development projects under Gaddafi. This extensive support exemplified his commitment to his vision of a united and powerful Africa capable of self-sustenance and reducing dependency on external aid. Were the Western nations' criticisms of Gaddafi's rule entirely valid? While Gaddafi's rule included significant developmental strides, it also faced substantial criticism, particularly from Western countries, concerning governance and human rights issues. Critics often describe Gaddafi as ruling with an authoritarian approach, suppressing opposition and silencing dissent. There were numerous reports of the government using harsh measures against those who criticized or posed a threat to the government. This included allegations of torture, arbitrary detention, and, in some cases, extrajudicial killings.
Evidence about other attacks Gaddafi has planned against the United States installations and diplomats and even American tourists. Thanks to close cooperation with our friends, some of these have been prevented. With the help of French authorities, we recently aborted one such attack, a planned massacre using grenades and small arms of civilians waiting in line for visas at an American embassy. Colonel Gaddafi is not only an enemy of the United States. His record of subversion and aggression against the neighboring states in Africa is well documented and well known. He has ordered the murder of fellow Libyans in countless countries. He has sanctioned acts of terror in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, as well as the Western Hemisphere. Today, we have done what we had to do. If necessary, we shall do it again. It gives me no pleasure to say that, and I wish it were otherwise. Before Gaddafi seized power in 1969, the people of Libya had been friends of the United States. And I'm sure that today most Libyans are ashamed and disgusted that this man has made their country a synonym for barbarism around the world.
Furthermore, the international community frequently cited specific incidents, such as the 1996 Abu Salim prison massacre, which claimed the lives of about 1,200 inmates. These accusations paint a complex picture of Gaddafi's rule, characterized by both significant development achievements and serious human rights concerns. This dual legacy continues to shape perceptions of his time in power.
He has denied his people freedom, exploited their wealth, murdered opponents at home and abroad, and terrorized innocent people around the world, including Americans who were killed by Libyan agents. Last month, Gaddafi's grip of fear appeared to give way to the promise of freedom. In cities and towns across the country, Libyans took to the streets to claim their basic human rights. As one Libyan said, "For the first time, we finally have hope that our nightmare of 40 years will soon be over." Faced with this opposition, Gaddafi began attacking his people. As president, my immediate concern was the safety of our citizens, so we evacuated our embassy and all Americans who sought our assistance. When we took a series of swift steps in a matter of days to answer Gaddafi's aggression.
Western powers played a pivotal role in the fall of Gaddafi in 2011. Ultimately, they capitalized on the unrest sweeping the Middle East and North Africa during the Arab Spring. While widespread calls for democratic reform characterized the Libyan uprising, the West's decisive intervention sealed Gaddafi's fate. Reports of human rights abuses quickly reached the international community, providing the West with a pretext for action. Gaddafi's government responded with severe measures to stop the protests and stifle dissent. Spearheading the charge, Western nations pushed through the 1973 United Nations Security Council resolution. This granted them broad authority to use all necessary measures in Libya, justifying the NATO-led bombing campaign that followed. Under the guise of protecting civilians, these airstrikes crippled Gaddafi's military. This turned the tide in favor of the rebels, who might have otherwise struggled against Gaddafi's loyal forces. The West's motives extended beyond simple humanitarian concerns. Removing Gaddafi, a long-time thorn in their side, aligned with geopolitical ambitions. Additionally, securing influence in oil-rich Libya was undoubtedly factored into the nation's calculations. Gaddafi's death marked the end of his 42-year rule and opened the door to increased Western involvement with the now fragmented nation.
Of the U.S. ambassador with the instability in northern Mali with Boko Haram, is that the connection you're drawing?
There is connection, and we know that there will be a price to pay in the way that it all went in Libya. That at the end of the day, all of us in Africa and all those who masterminded the way it happened will have to pay a price, and we are now paying the price.
So as you were watching the euphoria surrounding the Arab Spring unfold, you were one of those individuals who felt, hang on for a minute, this is not going to play out the way some people may expect.
Now, it was too early to shout uhuru with the Arab Spring, and some of us said that look, what will be the final outcome of this? Let us wait and see. When you have violence and violent overthrow of regimes, you do not know exactly what the final outcome will be.
Did the involvement of the international community, particularly through NATO airstrikes under UN Resolution 1973, influence the outcome of the Arab Spring in Libya? These events highlight the complex interplay of internal dissatisfaction and external intervention. The broader regional context and decisive international actions significantly influenced the Arab Spring in Libya, in addition to the internal demand for change. The aftermath left Libya in a state of instability and political fragmentation, which continues to affect the country today. Since 2011, Libya has been in a state of flux. Following the removal of Gaddafi, the lack of a unified central government has created a power vacuum. This has given rise to various factions and militias competing for power and influence. The resulting instability has had a severe impact on the country's development and the formation of a functioning, representative government. External influences, such as international actors and the United Nations, claim to have sought to promote peace and stability. Mediation efforts and peace talks have been ongoing. However, individual nations have also pursued their interests in the region, sometimes supporting opposing factions. While well-intended, these external interventions have further complicated the situation in Libya. Social program impacts. Significant disruptions have occurred to the social systems established under Gaddafi, such as free education, healthcare, and housing. Conflict has damaged or closed schools and hospitals, and limited resources have decreased their overall efficacy. Technically, there is still a framework for free education, but quality and accessibility have suffered significantly. Libya's economy is heavily dependent on oil revenues. Conflict-driven fluctuations in oil production and disruptions at crucial ports have created extreme instability. This instability directly impacts funding for public services and reconstruction efforts. Due to damage from the protracted conflicts, many areas of Libya require extensive reconstruction. Some rebuilding has occurred, often backed by international support, but the pace is slow and inconsistent. The fragmented political landscape inhibits the coordination of large-scale infrastructure projects. Ultimately, achieving stability and national reconciliation in Libya will require compromise and cooperation among the various internal factions, as well as a reduction in, or no external interference from regional and global powers pursuing narrow strategic interests within the country. Muammar Gaddafi was a leader characterized by stark contradictions. He undeniably drove progress in Libya, elevating living standards, launching ambitious development projects, and holding a bold vision for Africa. Western governments and human rights organizations accuse Gaddafi of fostering a cult of personality, suppressing opposition, and committing significant human rights violations. Now, with these facts in hand, you can form your own opinion. Was Muammar Gaddafi a great leader for Libya? Well, history seekers, that's a wrap on the complex legacy of Muammar Gaddafi. If you found value in this journey, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's continue the conversation in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace and love.